Hello, everyone. It's Marsha Jones, and this is the Next Level NP podcast. Thank you for joining me, whether you are watching me on video or listening to me in your earphones or in your car. What Next Level NP is about is bringing you all types of resources to help you with your practice. I have a functional medicine focus on the way that I provide healthcare, but I also have started many successful businesses and have kind of honed down in on what I really love. And so that's part of this week's topic, is talking about being thankful and being grateful in this wonderful career that we have as nurse practitioners. This is also Thanksgiving week, so November is full of blessings and full of thank yous for everything that we have to be grateful for, not just in our career, but in our families. So I do want to take some time to reflect on that. And I also have part of what has brought me to thinking about this wonderful career is that my stepdaughter told me just yesterday that her path is to be like me. She wants to go to school for nursing because she knows that it is a career that she can rely on. Okay, sorry guys, this is not a racist comment or a sexist comment, but she's like, I'm not dependent on anyone. I'm going to take care of myself, and there's a certain lifestyle that I like to live, which cracked me up. And I said, yes, ma'am, that's the way you should always think. Be strong, be independent. Think about how to take care of yourself and do what you love. So we got into a discussion about the career in general, how you start with the career, what's the best options for her to do while she's going through her courses, how to take advantage of the courses, and, her other academic adventures, so that she is very well rounded for whatever career path that she chooses once she is finished with her degree. So I was honored and flattered that is where she is going with her career choices. And it's nice to see that what I do reflects that way, because I've done many things in my career, like many of us have. I started as a nursing assistant, then I went to school for my RN program, but I had that option to do a bridge course halfway through to become an LPN. So everywhere that I could take that next step to go to that next level, the next level, I did it, so that I was always educating myself. I was always learning more. And of course, at the time, I wanted to be more financially secure. So I was able to make an LPN's wages instead of a nursing assistant wages while I was finishing my programs to become a registered nurse. And once I finished my program as a registered nurse, I got an associate's degree first. Then I worked for a while, and then I went back and, of course, got my bachelor's and now my master's. And since that, my career path has taken me in so many directions. And sometimes you think, wow, I've worked in the emergency room, I've worked in neurology, I've worked in cardiology, I've done all these things in my life. And if you put that on a resume, somebody might think, good Lord, like she gets all over the place. But it was never that. It was always taking that next opportunity, always looking for that next step, following my passion, and doing what it was I loved and what I wanted to do. I love learning. I absolutely love learning. And there's so many paths, like I keep saying, that we can take, that you never stop learning, ever. So you can do anything and be anyone you want to be in this career. And that's what I got really excited with yesterday talking to her about, because I'm like, you can do pediatrics, you can do geriatrics, you can do aesthetics, you can do functional medicine, you can, all these things. I'm just like, da-da-da-da-da. And she was like, slow down, just let me get into college first, which I was like, okay. But for those of you who are finished your career or almost finished your education to become a nurse practitioner, or you're a registered nurse maybe listening to this and you're not sure if you want to go back or what your options are when you're finished, explore those options. Just know that everything can be exciting and fresh and new. You're not stuck when you're in this profession. We can do, like I said, anything. And so as I progressed down through my path, I worked for neurology. Then I went into primary care, because that was what I originally went to school for, was because I live in a rural area, and I always wanted to give back to the community that I grew up in. And so I knew that there was lack of primary care services in my county. So once, I left the emergency department and finished on with my studies so that I could come back and bring that to the community. And I've stayed here. I am now 13 years into my practice at my primary care location, but I also do urgent care services, which has been beneficial because we don't have a lot of options for those types of things. But I've been able to branch out, and I loved aesthetics. That was the first thing. I wanted to get services done myself, and so I wanted to learn more about them. That's the nerd that I am. Instead of just going and getting your own, Botox and filler, you go take a course on it, right? That's me. So I went and took this course, and I just became so fascinated with all of the things that you can do with this. So one of the things was, yes, it's, I call it happy medicine, where there's really not much charting involved in it. You get to make women and some gentlemen, I worked primarily on women, you get to make women feel so good with what you're doing for them. You can put a little bit of filler here and a little bit of filler there, and it's like you've given them a renewed life, and they walk out feeling more confident and just on top of the world. That's what I love. But I also was able to make many great relationships in that pathway with aesthetics because, we talk. We're women. We talk. I talk. That's how this podcast part thing comes to be too, because I like to talk and I like to share and I like to educate. So as I would talk to these ladies about their needs, physically, the things that they were wanting to do, I was always very cautious to make sure that I was never assisting anyone in anything that may be dysmorphic, because I did have a few women who would come in and their bodies, their images were beautiful, and they were wanting all these services, and there was no way I could take advantage of them, and I wouldn't, and I would explain to them why. So we would come up with something, little something. Maybe it was a B12 shot to boost them energetically, or something else to work with them to make them feel better. And so that's how I started then again down another path into hormones, because it went hand in hand. So still have my primary care practice where I can definitely do hormone therapy. I've got the aesthetics that I'm doing. This was my hobby. I did it on evenings and some weekends. Just had a little clinic with that. And that little clinic led into learning about hormones. Well, then of course that's weight loss. So all these things that I was doing with these ladies was fueling my passion because it was making them feel so much better. Well, as I was going down through, my weight management services and the aesthetic services, then I started, into functional medicine, because I didn't want to just put a Band-Aid on things. And I could tell that these ladies, they had a lot of things going on, and sometimes the hormones themselves weren't fixing everything. They make them feel good for a little while, and I wanted to know why. Well, the hormone course that I had taken only focused on doing bioidentical hormones, so it did not go into what you do if that doesn't work, like if that patch doesn't work, or what else to look for. So there's so many other things that go into hormones that I've learned over the years and fine-tuned my approach to managing my patients that I feel like I've got a pretty good well-oiled machine now with that. So that's kind of how I've went from here to there to, Madison Square. I know, I'm a dork. My grandmother used to say those little sayings. But that's how I've went from here to, just as I've gotten older and as I've grown in my career and developed, it's finding what the need is, finding what that niche is, and following it. So I've never been stuck. I don't ever feel stuck. The only time that I felt down in what I was doing was when I myself needed some hormone replacement. And as I got my hormones into alignment, then I got my zest back and my energy back. And so that is where I have come to start teaching. In the nursing career, what they teach us is they say, see one, do one, teach one. That's our motto, right? So I see one, do one, teach one. And I've gotten into teaching and educating because I say I'm getting old. I'm 48, and I think, wow, I've got a lot to share. I've got a lot to educate people on, and I know that now there's, the field of aesthetics is escalating, like wildly escalating still, because women are going to pay for something to make them look and feel good over anything else. They're going to find the money to make that happen. But I want you to, never be that person that's going to obviously take advantage of them. Always help to find them find more, and to make sure that you are treating them inside and out. And so the aesthetics course that I have, I do that. That's one of the things that I educate on in the aesthetics course. It's called Art of Aesthetics, and it's all online. But what I educate on is how to assess the woman both inside and out, so that you are helping her to not, feed into dysmorphia or, unrealistic ideas of self-image, but to improve their self-image and to help them to feel better about themselves. That's what we're supposed to do. So, and I tell you a lot of this because I've had people say, oh, you do functional medicine or you do primary care, and yet you're putting botulinum toxin into people. And I'm like, yeah, I am. It's very safe. It's been proven safe. We have many things that we use botulinum toxin for. It isn't just for aesthetic purposes. You can also use it for migraines. You can use it for masseters. They use it in, the bladder. There's many things that we have learned to use it for. And in my primary care practice, I actually do use Botox for things like dystonia and migraines. I use it medically. So there's so many things that we can do. And I do touch on that just a little bit in the course, but the course is mostly aesthetics. So if you have ever thought about that and it's something that you want to dive into and aesthetics is like your passion, that course is available. But in our season of blessings and Thanksgivings, and as I've explained to you now how I've taken my path from point A to point B and all the things that I have done in my career, and now I'm more towards educating, and I've focused in on hormone management, still do a little aesthetics on the side. I want to teach others how to do that, because I can help more people when I help you help people. Because there's a lot of us and there's a lot of patients, and the more there are of us on the front line being able to look at the big picture and help people to feel good about themselves inside and out, whether it be from the aesthetic aspect of it or the hormone aspect, it all rolls in together. So I do offer coaching and consulting along with the courses, and you know that I have the hormone course that is just been released. If you didn't get in on that and that special rate, don't panic. Okay, I'm a softie, and I'm going to offer actually an even bigger and better deal because of the holiday season. And anyone who has already taken advantage of the $500 off that I offered up until the course was launched, I'm going to give them the discount as well, because it's the season, right? It's the feeling of Thanksgiving, and it is my mission to finish out 2023 strong and help as many nurse practitioners as I possibly can come into 2024 with a bang, doing what they love, what they're passionate about, because I don't want anyone to ever feel stuck and this amazing career that we have. So you may have started, I hope this was a bit of an inspiration as to how you can travel from point A to point B. Wherever you are in your career path, whether you're a brand new graduate, whether you've done this for a little while and you're like, oh, this isn't really what I thought it was. Don't give up. Do not give up on your career. Just know that there's so many things out there for you, so many things that are available that you can do, that you don't ever give up. You can twist, you can reposition, you can come up with a new plan. Even if maybe you've already started a practice and it's not quite what you thought it was going to be, you can revamp it. There's so many possibilities and options. Just please don't give up. I've been in a lot of nurse practitioner groups, and unfortunately I'm seeing the trend where people are saying that, they're tired of what they're doing, or it's not going so well, or they're not financially stable or secure with it, or it's taken a little bit longer to get it off the ground than they had anticipated. Please don't let that let you give up. There's lots of things that we can do, that you can do. I'm going to be soon offering a free master course on business development. So how to get you started to know, is it right for you to open your own business, your own practice? Some of the things that you need to consider when you're going to do that. I've got a lot of things lined up because this is my profession and I want to give back. I want to educate from all the years of experience that I have. I'm still going to be doing this for quite a while, and I'm not sure what's next, but I'm very, very happy with what I am doing right now. That is, a little aesthetics on the side educating on hormones, really getting balance into hormones, because you've heard me talk a lot about hormone imbalance and cancer and all of the things that can happen when your hormones are imbalanced. So that is my path where I'm helping women. I'm still helping women. So basically I've got a hormone focused, practice, a female focused practice where I do hormones and aesthetics. And that could be something that you're interested in. If you are, I would love to help you, mentor you, and teach you. As I said, my special for this go round is I just put out a bundle, the aesthetics bundle for Thanksgiving for our holiday season, where if you are doing your coaching and consulting with me, I am going to give you the Art of Aesthetics course for free. Yes, for free. You will get this course. It is right now priced at $997. It's worth way more than that because it's business development as well as the aesthetics. But because I couldn't do hands-on with you for a lot of things, and I had to do the video demonstrations of the procedures and stuff, I felt more comfortable at $997 than doing the $1997 that was recommended by some other professionals in this this field of expertise. My field of expertise is not pricing programs. It is not a lot of this technological stuff that I do, but it is part of it. And so I'm learning it. I would much rather do hormone management and talk into this microphone to anyone who wants to listen than doing this technical side of stuff. But I am evolving, and we've been able to do things that we don't always want to do, right? All of us. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're ready to jump into that field of aesthetics, or if you are thinking that, these kind of things that I do are something that intrigue you and inspire you, and you'd like to follow down with that path as well, that is part of what I do with my consulting business is, the Nurse Practitioner Success Blueprint is whatever path you want to take at whatever area you are in that journey. That's where I want to help you. That is where I want to start with you and help you to align yourself. Whether you've started a practice and it's not going so well and you would like some assistance with getting it over the top. I help with marketing. I help with the business. I help with employees, just streamlining your process. And even if you want to do it all yourself until you're ready to hire on, I can help you with the most economical way to do that. Like I said, a lot of planning. But in addition to the business part of this, I have done many, many things in my career, and I can help you in whatever aspect it is that you want to do. Wherever you want to take your career, I'm here to help coach you, consult with you, mentor you, and guide you through that process. You do not have to do it alone. And as I said, if you've looked at my course or the coaching and consulting page, you might be like, oh my goodness, it's $10,000. Well, it's actually a $25,000 course, and I have marked it down to $10,000 because I want to help reach more people. If you are at your end of the year spending, and you need a good write-off, which there's a lesson for you right there. You need a write-off. It's a great thing to invest in. So that $10,000, you get me for 6 months to help train you, educate you, take you to that next level in your practice. If you have a successful practice and you want to go another level, I can help you with learning how to do this podcasting, course creation, whatever it is. I could probably almost have done it if it's in this business of our profession. So I would love to help you. And like I said, it is a good time for a write-off. If you're interested in the field of aesthetics, you will make $250,000 or more easily in a year. So this $10,000 is nothing. It really is. Trust me, I've done the aesthetics thing over and over. I have started 3 aesthetic practices, all very successful. But the only reason I've closed them is because I couldn't be hands-on in all 3 of them. And I've told you my path was taking another direction. So I've had to streamline for my sanity because, again, at this age of 48, I'm not old by any means, but I'm taking a different path with my career, and I want to help to educate and mentor those who are coming into this career, because unfortunately I don't think that we're getting and giving the mentorship that we need. And when you are doing your education and you're going through your program, I don't think that you're getting what you need in those programs to really set you up for success in your career. It is setting you up to take on a job as a nurse practitioner. That's just my thought. But as you go through this, again, I don't want anyone to feel like they missed their calling. And you don't even have to start your own practice. You might just want to be looking how to do different avenues, doing a side gig, a side job, whatever it is. These are the things that we do and that we cover. And since aesthetics is booming, and I can assure you, guarantee you that you can be successful in that, help you look at your market, do your research. And if the market isn't quite right for it, I'm going to let you know that also. I will be 100% honest. But this is a great time to take these next few weeks of 2023 and do the program, the aesthetics, the Art of Aesthetics program. Learn those things, fine tune your skills, make 2024 the year you bring it all out. Take it out. Let's start off the new year with new goals. And then the coaching and consulting, of course, is what you're already going to be doing with me. And you get the course for free. So even if aesthetics isn't something that you think you want to do right now, I would highly recommend it, because I didn't think that I would ever be aesthetics based, because I had always put myself into this box that I was going to be doing primary care in my community. I was going to be helping the people in my community. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I went back to school for. I made a commitment to the people where I live, and I'm staying here. I have not changed my commitment where I live. I will never give up primary care, but there are these other things that I do that I absolutely love. And I think that functional medicine is a different path, and it's a different offering to the people in my community that they really need. And we don't have a lot of resources for that. But I also do it online. I have, an online program that I can reach more people. But again, all of these wonderful things that I've learned that are changing people's lives, helping them to get their vitality back, get their energy back, saving their marriages, preventing cancer, everything that we're doing with balancing hormones and giving people back their life and boosting their confidence is life-altering and game-changing. These are things that if you've ever had a passion to do or desire to do or truly want to help someone, I highly recommend it. I would love to work with you. I want to help you to help more people, because that is what I'm giving back. That's going to be my legacy, is helping others to help as many people as possible. I'm even working on a program, an affiliate program, so that if you're not comfortable with managing all of the things yourself right away, I'm doing a coaching and mentoring course with patients that you can just tap them into my course and just get an affiliate kickback out of that. I hate to call it a kickback. I think that's illegal. Sorry to the accountants. I don't mean a kickback. I mean a referral, because we're all working together to give our patients resources. So if you refer them to the hormone program that I'm going to release for patients, then you will get an affiliate consultation fee. I would call it that. You referred them to me, and then you will get a portion of that. But I also want to educate you yourself on hormones. So we're working through all this because it helps for everything. Weight loss, diabetes management, just balancing hormones balances life and helps for so many different things. I know I keep talking about that. So we started off with our blessings and how thrilled I was that my stepdaughter was wanting to follow the same career path, because I know what is in store for her. I know the possibilities are endless. And I would like to encourage you, any of your family members as well, anyone that you know, to do this, do this type of career that'll take you anywhere you want to go. So you guys, enjoy your holidays. Please take time to think of the blessings of this career that you have found yourself. Where are you in your career path? Is it where you want to be? If it's not, it's okay. I don't care where you are in it. Let's move you to that next level. Let's get you happy. We only have one life to live, and there's way more to it than working ourselves to death. And this career can be very overwhelming sometimes, even with all of its blessings. It can be very overwhelming, and it can drag you down a little bit and change who you may have been when you started it. I don't want you to change who you are. I want you to feel magnificent every day, bounce out of bed, and be ready to go to work, or whatever you call it, because it won't feel like work. I want you to do what you love every single day. So I hope this has been enlightening for you. Happy Thanksgiving to you. If you are interested in that bundle, go to MarshaJonesNP.com under Next Level NP, and you will find how to get to that. It's also on my Facebook page, on my Instagram page. I will put it into the links of this show. It is my LinkedIn bio. I keep forgetting that. I've figured out LinkedIn bios now. I told you this technological stuff is not my thing, but I am learning it. And the stuff that I have learned, I say that, and I'm going to coach and consult you. I can teach you how to do it. I should say it's something that I don't really like to do. I prefer to talk and teach. The whole techie thing is easy. You can learn it, but it's just not my thing. But that is one of the things that we go through. And additionally, I help you with, like I said, marketing your Instagram posts and Facebook posts and all that kind of stuff. I got tons of them I'm willing to share. It's fine. I want to help. And I know what works. So, you guys, once again, happy holidays. Go to MarshaJonesNP.com so that you can find all of the resources. I will also be sending this to you in an email. Please like and subscribe my YouTube page if you're watching it from there. If you're on the podcast app, please like me and subscribe to that there. Also, share this with your friends so that everyone may benefit and we can all work together to bring health and wellness, vitality, and just confidence to everyone that we have a chance to encounter. We are blessed to be in this profession. We were blessed to be given the ability to go through this program, so we should be blessed to be happy in everything that we do and to help one another and to help our patients. You guys take care. I'll talk to you again soon.